Hi everyone. Last time we read, we got a flashback to 1957, and Coach Dove was trying to figure out how his team was going to win the secret tennis match. And him and Adam Douglas were discussing whether or not he should let his star player, Reggie, come back onto the team. So that's where I'm going to start up again. Dove flexed his fingers. His face had twisted into a scowl. "I'll let him on if he wants to play," he finally said. "But that doesn't mean I approve of him and little Dubs, whatever they want to call it. And I'm still not going to allow them to see each other." Chip tried to keep his face steady. Had Siobhan been seeing someone this summer? And his father knew about it? Clearly Dub was mad about their relationship. Was that why Siobhan and her father weren't on speaking terms? Chip shook his head. He had just assumed... He just knew Siobhan liked him as much as he liked her. "You know Reggie won't apologize," Adam Douglas said. Big Dub started back down to the bleachers. "Good, neither will I." Chip waited until Big Dub had returned to the court. "Why didn't you tell me?" he whispered to his father. "Well, I'm telling you now. Not that Reggie had any better chance than you. Dub's not about to let his daughter date someone high-yellow poor kid from Vista Heights. Boy doesn't even know who his daddy is." He checked his watch. "I'll be home late. It might take a while to convince Reggie to come back." "Why can't you just call him?" Chip asked as they exited the stands. He didn't want his father talking to this boy, his rival, per se. "Everybody doesn't have a phone, you know. Plus, he ain't even home right now." He took a few steps, then stopped. "You know, you think you're better than most whites, but you're not. You mean well, but you're not. To be honest, it's just as much my fault as yours. I allowed it." "What?" Chip said. "That man is twice your age, older than me," his father said. "He's the father of the girl you supposedly love, and you can't even address him as Mr.? Can't call him Sir? Or even Coach?" Chip replayed the conversation he had just had with Big Dub. He tried to replay every conversation he'd had with the man. "Tell your mom I'll be down on Darling Avenue," he said. "I'll pick up some PJs for dinner." Chip frowned. "I thought you were going to see Reggie." "I am. He works at the shoe shine stand," his father said. "Want some fish too? The daily special?" As much as he loved food from PJ's, Chip wasn't thinking about fried coker and jalapeno hush puppies. He was thinking about the boy at the stand. The tall, lanky, light-skinned boy he had asked to buy 2 Cokes. That boy. That was Reggie. Chapter 28. On Friday morning, Candace walked over to Brandon's house so they could go to Vickers Park. Even though they were planning to attend the Juneteenth festival there the following day, Candace figured they'd have better luck looking around when it was quieter. Her mom might ask too many questions if she saw them hanging around the tennis courts. Tori opened the front door, said that she needed about 10 more minutes, then told Candace that Brandon was shooting hoops. Candace stepped into the backyard to see Brandon carrying bricks across the lawn. "Is this some old-school workout routine you're doing?" she asked as he dropped the bricks in the grass beside the basketball goal. He wiped his face, leaving a streak of dirt across his forehead. Then he picked up a broom. "I'm hoping to use the bricks to prop up this broom. I need to practice shooting over a defender." Candace walked across the lawn and took the broom from him. "Next time you could just ask me to help." She held up the broom, the bristles at the top. "Is this high enough?" "A little lower." Brandon asked her to take a step forward. Then he grabbed the ball. He squared himself up and shot. The basketball hit the rim, but just rolled in. "I usually start here and work my way around the hoop," he said. "Just follow me around." They began to move around the yard. "By the way, I really appreciate this," he said. "No problem," Candace replied. She didn't want to admit it, but her arms were starting to burn from holding the broom. "Where'd you learn this from?" "My friend Quincy. I used to practice with him and his dad. We're both small, so his dad had us working on getting more air under our arc." He smiled as he spun the ball in his hands. Whenever Quincy held the broom, he would always try to yell to break my concentration. He shot the ball again, but it never worked. Candace lowered her arms and shook them out as Brandon chased the ball. "Did you ever try yelling at him too?" "All the time, and it worked." Brandon chose a spot even farther away from the goal. Candace dragged the broom over to him and hoisted it up again. "Quincy was never good with tuning out all the noise on the court, all the trash talk," Brandon said. He licked his lips as he readied himself to shoot. "Quincy would jump at every little Ah! Candace yelled. Brandon jerked his hands as he released the ball. The basketball flew to the left, missing the hoop entirely. It crashed into a pile of bricks he had been carrying. Candace grinned. Score one for me. It took Tori more like 20 minutes to get ready, but eventually they were all on their way to Vista Heights. As they neared the park, Candace found herself stewing over Miss Farmer's words about her grandmother. Crazy. Fool. What was she thinking? If the search in the park led them to Parker's fortune, and if the bracelet really was Siobhan's, then everyone would have to take back every mean thing they said about her grandmother. Candace ran her hands over her grandmother's bracelet. Or should she think of it as Siobhan's bracelet now? It was hard to rewire her brain to see it differently. Tori parallel parked along Darling Avenue. Y'all keep an eye out for each other, okay? I'll be right here. She thumped her brother on the head. And don't do anything stupid. Candace and Brandon exited the car. Vickers Park was definitely different than her community park back home. The playground was almost empty, with rust collecting on the swing chains and monkey bars. Most of the activity was at the basketball court, where a group of boys shot hoops and talked trash. Workers from the city were unloading tables underneath the pavilion, probably for the festival tomorrow. There was supposed to be live music, face painting, games, and even a rock climbing wall. Candace just hoped that Milo and his friends wouldn't be there to ruin it. Candace started toward the tennis courts, but stopped when she realized Brandon wasn't following. He stared at the basketball game, his head going back and forth as the boys went up and down the court. You want to play? Candace asked. No, I'm too young to play with them. Don't you just remember how I was holding that broom up for you? She asked. You could totally shoot over them. Brandon shook his head. Those guys talk a lot of smack. Well, you could just ignore them, Candace said. Or talk back. But Brandon was already walking away. Maybe another day. And anyway, that's not why we're here, right? Candace followed Brandon to the tennis courts. The fence surrounding the two green courts was as rusty as the playground equipment. You'd think with all the money he was throwing around, James Parker would have made a donation to this place too, Brandon said. A small wooden sign hung on the outside of the fence. The Enoch Washington Memorial Tennis Courts. The court was old and deteriorating, with multiple potholes and fissures. The other was in much better shape, with smaller hairline cracks and a newer net. Candace walked to the center of the new court. This must be the one. She took a deep breath. What had led her grandmother to dig up this court? Had she really found the bracelet there? And if so, why hadn't she said anything to anyone about it? Brandon stood on the white boundary line away from her. She didn't know if he was intentionally giving her space or not, but she appreciated that he kept his distance. Her grandmother was not crazy. She was not a fool. I know these courts weren't here when they held the secret tennis game, but maybe they found a way to play here anyway. She pointed to the basketball court. Maybe they put a net up there. He joined her on the tennis court. I don't see how. It's so close to the street. Too many people would have noticed it. Brandon tugged on the net. I'll be honest, I'm not really sure what we're looking for. There's nothing in the letter about this tennis court. Candace looked around. Well, something led my grandmother to these courts, she said. There's got to be a clue here. Something with a date. She pointed to a bench along the sidewalk in front of the court. Does that bench have a plaque on it? Yeah, I think so. You check that out, she said. I'll look at the benches over on the other end. Candace had barely made it to the other side of the court when Brandon yelled her name. She turned to see him jumping up and down and waving his arms by the first bench he'd checked. She ran to him. You found something? Oh, yeah, he said, beaming. The bench was old and the plaque was scratched and tarnished, but Candace could still read the inscription. In loving memory, Siobhan Mildred Washington. She loved all. She loved all? Candace repeated. That's in the letter. She fished it out of her pocket, then nodded once she opened it. Yeah, right there. She looked back at the bench. But the plaque's not dated. Can I hold the letter? Brandon asked. After taking it, he sank into the bench and read it over again. He looked up, blinked, then read the letter again, counting as he moved down the page. It's a clue, he finally said. Yeah, but what is it? No, I mean, it's all clues. It's full of clues. He was talking too fast. It's just like the Weston game when... Wait, I haven't finished it yet. Brandon actually scowled at her. You haven't? If you haven't noticed, I've been a little busy. Well, how far along are you? I'm almost done. Good, he stood up. Come on, you have to finish that book. You mean now? Candace asked. We should keep looking around here. We can come back if we need to. He started toward his sister's car. Just finish the book. I'll ruin it if I say anything more. And I'm going to stop right there because right after that is chapter 29 and we don't have much more time. So, for those of you that have read The Westing Game, and I don't know how many of you have besides Claire, but if you have, what do you think Brandon means by that? That the clues are just like in The Westing Game. And if you haven't read The Westing Game, now would be a really great time to start reading it.